Hello, welcome to the first episode of Harmony and Hustle, a collaborative podcast dedicated to the celebration of music in all its forms and in many different topics and areas. My name is Sean.
And I'm Dan.
So this is my first time doing this, so you'll have to bear with because it's a bit cringe, but it's all part of the fun. So, yeah. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think we should introduce ourselves a little bit more for the audience that obviously are new to us.
Yeah,
First episode and all that.
Yes, that'd probably be a good idea. Who wants to go first? I don't.
I'll go first then. So, hi everyone, I'm Dan. I'm a musician. I played the drums for 15 years now. Can't believe that. It's actually insane to think. I remember when I started drums, I got into it through listening to bands like Slipknot and Disturbed.
Nice.
Enough. All that double bass and all that, which is funny because I barely listen to stuff like that now. So like my music tastes have really changed over time. But I got into a pop punk band when I was in school. And that was my first proper band. And it was literally like 6 months into playing drums. I was in a band and we were rehearsing like 3 times a week, playing gigs around Swindon, playing all like the school stuff and all that kind of thing, playing at like local festivals. So that went on for quite a while. And then when I went to college, that kind of disbanded and everyone went their own separate ways. And then in college, I did a bit of like session work, to be honest. Like I played with a singer-songwriter called Sophie Goldsworthy for a little bit. I was in an indie band called The Loves for a little bit as well. And I just kind of played with everyone. Like we had to do music recording for our music A-level. And there was like me and this other drummer. Between us, we played on like everyone's recordings. We just kind of split them. So we must have done like 30 recordings each. So that was quite good fun. And also quite a good like learning experience for like actually recording in the studio. And then after that, I went to uni, studied like music tech, music production, which was good. But I think the course that I did was pretty like classical. Like it was weird to be a rock musician in a room of like people that are all grade A on their like classical instrument and really good at reading sheet music. And then I'm there like, I just don't have a clue. But definitely tried my best. And the performance is very interesting, I think. But yeah, after that, I guess, God, this is going on a while, isn't it? I joined a band called Nora, playing gigs around London quite a lot. And that went on for a couple of years. Kept trying to get somewhere, but just didn't quite really make progress. Like we had a couple of gigs abroad, some recordings and stuff like that. But, you know, life commitments get in the way and then everyone kind of goes their separate ways. And then I joined a band called Wilding. Same sort of thing happened with that band. You know, we had a couple of recordings, played a load of gigs and stuff, and then everyone kind of went their separate ways. And then I moved back to Swindon, where I am now. Joined a band called Men Invests. And yeah, I just play in a covers band as well and just keep gigging, really. I'll leave mine there.
Sick. No, that sounds good. No, I had a couple of questions, actually. Some things like sort of stood out as you said you sort of got your start listening to like Slipknot, which I found quite interesting because you sort of got interested in music straight away from the heavy side of things and went from there, whereas I'm the complete opposite. I started out listening to like Newton Faulkner and the Gorillaz.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and maybe some Nickelback.
And now you're into the heavier stuff.
And now I'm into like, yeah, Periphery and Sixth and Slipknot.
Wow, that's interesting.
But no, it seems like we've been on like a similar journey because you went to college to study music.
Yeah.
Was that GCSE as well or A-level?
That was A-level.
A-level.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a bit similar to me because I left school with not many GCSEs, to be honest, and sort of sat around for a while, not sure of what I was going to do. And then I went back to college and did my GCSEs in music. So a similar course to you where, you're playing in bands and stuff and then worked my way up through A-level and then to my bachelor's and now I'm doing my master's. So similar kind of journey. You definitely have a lot more band experience than I do. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the Slipknot thing, I just remember when I was a kid, like, when I first heard, like, Joey Jordison's drums, especially on the early Slipknot records, I'd never heard anything sound like that, like the metallic sort of sound and, like, the tight double kicks and stuff. It just sounded like so out there to me at the time, and I was like, "What is this?" And I was there like with my little I think I had like a little toy drum kit like bashing along to Slipknot, and then I was like, "I need to get on the drums really." So then I started learning. But yeah, it's weird how things go like full circle like that.
Jay Jordenson's an interesting drummer because I don't know if you share this opinion or maybe it's just something I think or I've noticed. Some of it reminds me a lot like drum and bass, like some of it's like rhythms. I
Break
think
beats and stuff.
Yeah, like the break beats. I think there's one on Pulse of the Maggot. I think it's that one.
The early records, especially.
On the early records, like that's how I got into Slipknot because. Like, weirdly, I'm a guitarist, but I got really drawn into the drumming on that because it reminded me a lot like drum and bass, and I used to listen to a lot of that growing up. So yeah, and I didn't get into Slipknot until I was in like my 20s. So it just sort of reminded me of being younger, which is I think what drew me to that, which is strange because that's one of the few bands I've been drawn to, like drumming wise.
What about guitaring for you? What kind of got you into guitar playing?
Well, like I said before, I started out listening to like Newton Faulkner and things like that. So it was like the acoustic side of things for me that got me into guitar. Like some of the first stuff I ever learned was like, was it Dream Catch Me? I think that's what it's called by Newton Faulkner. Or Teardrop. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, and I sort of... Jason Mraz as well, like I'm Yours. That was one of the first songs I ever learned. But no, I think for me, definitely Eddie Van Halen was like the light bulb moment for me with guitar. Like he's the whole reason I sort of really got into like electric guitar and just, yeah, some of the stuff that he did blew my mind and still does to this day. Sadly, he's obviously not with us anymore. He died a few years ago, so he's definitely got like a legacy for me and many other guitarists who looked up to him. It was that actually, funnily enough, is what propelled me onto studying music at college for my GCSEs and my A-levels was probably, because of Eddie Van Halen. I think it was his 5150 tour that he did with Sammy Hagar, and I think it was 1985. Don't quote me on that. And there's he does his Eruption solo for that gig, as he does with every live show that he's done. But that one in particular, I saw that, and it just completely blew my mind. I was like, wow, like how could you make these sounds on a guitar? I found that really attractive. So yeah, definitely Eddie Van Halen. That's like sort of my biggest inspiration to start with anyway. That's sort of what propelled me forward. These days, it's Mark Tremonti from Alter Bridge and Creed. Everyone knows Creed. That's Van Halen was the reason I started to play guitar, like seriously. And I think Mark Tremonti is the reason I still play guitar. He's like my hero. So anyone who knows me will know that I don't stop banging on about Alter Bridge and Mark Tremonti. He's a crazy good musician, very underrated, which we'll get to in another episode when we talk about underrated musicians and bands. That's how it was for me.
It's interesting how as well, like different genres, like sort of impact you at different times. Like I remember, obviously, like I said, I was in a pop punk band, and then I started branching out in college and listening to all sorts. And even like drummers that play, you mentioned like breakbeats earlier, like drum and bass style stuff on the drums.
Yeah.
I was like, that's something completely different again. And then like jazz, it's just like still blows my mind. Like I've got a friend who's an amazing jazz drummer, and it's just like insane some of the stuff they can play. But just like you go through those like phases of like finding those new bands. Even like we were talking about Dream Theater, like some of the prog bands are into, and Periphery. Like when I first heard those bands, same thing. I was like, wow, like I haven't heard so many time singers in a song before.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it's like a different level of inspiration, like a different like way of thinking about music. And that just opens up your creativity again.
Those sort of bands like Periphery and Dream Theater, I hear people saying a lot that they're musician bands. What do you think? I think I know what they mean by that, but I sort of just want to get your take on. Because it's not something a casual listener would listen to, or maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe I should do some research into that. But it doesn't seem like the casual person doesn't know who Dream Theater is, for example, or bands like Periphery. Is it because they're quite technical and they're quite hard to listen to? So unless you're unless you're a musician and you know what's going on, it kind of just sounds like mess sometimes.
I think it depends on your own personal taste as well. Like if you're a really out there artist and you appreciate art, which is like a bit obscure and different, you might like the music, even if you don't play music yourself or like understand the notation and that. But like, you know, pop songs are traditionally really simple for a reason. Like everyone can relate and get into them. So for those people that like the simplicity, it's going to be harder. But if you're someone that's like into really out there art and like creative people are like, I can appreciate like street art, like Banksy's street art and stuff like that, or like particular artists that do stuff that's really creative because of that same kind of like doing something that's different. So I guess it's more around like personality as well, I think.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting like the comparison between like street art and stuff and like music, because you could have like, I don't know, someone like Taylor Swift who could be more of like what's the word, I don't know what I mean. Fuck it, skip that.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying though.
I know what I mean with my mind, but like like more she's more like a contemporary piece is what I'm trying to say. And then you've got like Periphery and Dream Theater a bit more, I guess, abstract.
I think it also comes down to the approach to like how they write too. Because I remember when I went through the phase of loving prog rock, and then I flipped and went into like the most emotional, like deep, simplistic music,
ballads.
Which is just generally just music that's all about the actual emotion and like basically the less is more approach. Like what notes can you play, like say on the guitar, that say the most, like have the most meaning.
Yeah.
Without like making it as complicated as you need to, if you know what I mean. Like if you just play like 3 notes, what are those 3 notes that mean the most? That's what I like about, say, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, for example. Like John Frusciante.
I wondered how long it would take until we got onto the Chili's.
It's one of my favourite bands, but it's more about that less is more approach, basically. Like finding out of all the notes on the guitar neck, like what are the 3 notes that say the most and connect most of the song? And then you can take that approach to drumming too. Like, especially now I'm older, I find myself thinking, especially with recording, what's the most like minimal notes I can play? Like, if I was to make this drum part with less notes, what would I take out? Like, and it makes you think about what are the most important notes out of the whole beat. So I don't know. It's just a different approach, to be honest.
It's interesting. The Chili Peppers. That's something I'd always been aware of, like who they are. And like, do you know what? It's really weird actually. Both the Chili Peppers and Eddie Van Halen, the first time I ever heard them was in the Power Rangers movie in the 90s. They're both on the soundtrack. Higher Ground by Chili Peppers is in that movie. That's where I first heard them.
Okay.
I proper digged it. I was like, this is like the sick guitar riff.
Yeah.
Only later did I find out it's actually a cover. By was it Stevie Wonder, the original one? Yeah.
They did their own version of it.
Yeah. And then Van Halen, they did Dreams right at the end of the movie in Power Rangers. So I have Power Rangers to thank for my musical taste, in part at least. But Chili Peppers is something I've only really gotten into since knowing you, to be honest, like really appreciating them like a lot more. That song, I really like, Don't Forget About Me. Is that what it's called?
Don't Forget Me.
Don't Forget Me. Yeah. That one is quite the vibe, especially that live version.
Yeah, I guess for them as a band, like they're a band that I've listened to like consistently. Like even though I've gone through these phases, because they've got like quite a sort of range of a catalogue as well in terms of like heavier songs and lighter songs and more experimental albums. They've a band that I've consistently listened to probably for like the whole time I've been into music, which I can't say that about all bands. There's bands that I like just go off, like Blink, for example. I just never feel like listening to Blink now. I still appreciate the songs and everything, but
I can always listen to Blink.
Yeah, like maybe that's a couple of their songs I really like, but now I'm just like, I guess I'm just a bit over it. I don't know.
So
that won't be a popular one, that one.
So your music taste, is that something that sort of you sort of defined yourself, or did you have like input? Like, so I guess what I'm asking is like, did your parents have any influence, or what sort of influenced your music taste or influenced your interest in music?
Yeah, this is a good conversation actually. For me, my dad was a huge influence, and he still is now. Like, he loves music. Like, so when I was young, he listened to Dookie a hell of a lot. Oasis a hell of a lot.
Green Day.
Green Day, yeah, Green Day, Dookie. Nirvana a lot. Like, that was the first CD I got actually, was Nirvana, when I was like really young, and he like got me a CD player and showed me how to play the CD. Like, and it was like Nirvana in Utero, I think. So it's quite like a heavy one, but yeah. And then yeah, Dookie would play like hell of a lot back then, and that obviously is still an amazing album now.
Green Day have been going for forever. It's crazy. Like, when you think back of like how long they've been going, it's insane.
Doing the same style of music the whole time, really, as well.
Yeah, they didn't really change it up too much.
No, they had like American Idiot and stuff, which is a bit.
Yeah, that's when I first heard
similar.
of them. Was when that album came out, and there was like it was all the rage, and I hated it because that's all anyone would talk about.
It was huge. I remember that was one of those CDs. There's a couple of like albums like that, but that was one of those CDs that everyone had in their collection. Like, when you were a kid, everyone had American Idiot. Yeah, it's crazy. What about you? Did your like family had any influence, like friends?
No, to be honest, music was something I sort of fell into on my own. I've always played an instrument, so even in like primary school, I played like, obviously everyone starts off playing the recorder. That's like a given.
The piano for me was the first one. Actually.
Yeah. So I started playing the recorder and was like, "Oh, this is fun." I was quite an obnoxious child, so I still am, to be honest. But I quite like to make noise. So yeah, and then then it was violin for like a good year or two in primary school.
Did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, I played violin for I think better part of 2 years in primary school. I could not play it now. Like, I don't think, maybe I could, but. Yeah, I remember really enjoying it, and I kind of sort of, I've always had an interest in music without realising it, and definitely I think a lot of my music interest comes from movies, like, funnily enough, watching movies, listening to soundtracks. Like, I got into Blink-182 and like pop punk kind of bands because of movies like American Pie, like, which I was watching far too young, but yeah, like really got into music a lot that way, and like original soundtracks as well, like listening to like Howard Shore on the Lord of the Rings, his work and composition on those, like I was really into. So I've always been kind of interested in music without sort of realizing how important it was to me. Definitely parents were not involved in that in the nicest way. They just weren't. Like, we go on like driving trips and stuff and on holidays, and they'd be listening to like Now CDs with like Who Let the Dogs Out and stuff on. I'd be in the back rolling my eyes whilst my brothers were like singing along.
Another one for me
was horrendous.
Was Tony Hawk's Games, because I used to skate when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I played the Tony Hawk's Games loads, and the soundtracks were so good, and I got into so many bands through that as well. Because like there's a lot of I guess the skate scene and the music scene are quite connected. So
definitely.
There was always that kind of culture around skating as well. Like we would put, it was either like hip hop on or it was like pop punk. Yeah. And skate along to that, you know?
Yeah.
So that was another influence.
So Offspring. Crazy Taxi was another one that had a really sick soundtrack. Bad Religion, not Offspring.
Yeah, remember those bands.
It's really interesting how, like our music tastes and stuff are sort of defined by other media.
Yeah, it's an association.
Not so much for you, but yeah, for me, definitely. They kind of go like hand in hand.
Yeah, I guess the songs that are played on those movies at the time or on those games are like associated with the culture of that time as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never thought of it like that, but that is an interesting one. For sure. So I guess something else I haven't talked about is my music business.
Oh yes, well. Tell us about Real Music UK. For those who don't know, sort of what's the give us a rundown.
So it was weird because I first of all I wanted to just be a musician, right? Like I had the dream that everyone has, like I'm gonna go on tour, just play like drums,
I still want to be a rock star.
make loads of money and all that. But as the older you get, the harder that dream like becomes. And now it's like shifted to more trying to help other artists kind of get there. So in lockdown of 2020, I was like, I've always wanted to start my own business. I love music. I want it to be a music business. Let's just do it and make it official. So I went on to Company's House and did the whole like register for a limited company thing, even though I didn't really have a business, which isn't necessarily the best way to like do it looking back. But it was more that official, like, this is my starting point. And then throughout lockdown, I just did everything I could to help artists, because obviously all music venues are shut and there wasn't really any like gig opportunities, and a lot of artists, to be honest, were just bored as well. So I did like a couple of like live stream concerts and a couple of podcasts, getting people on. Did some face-to-face ones as well as over Zoom, stuff like that. And then I sort of continued on with that. And I've gradually built out a community and audience. And now I'm just trying to work out like what services I can offer, both free and paid, that really going to help them grow. And kind of, as you can see on the banner behind me, actually, like the three main things really are the events, so doing gigs. I've done a couple of those now. The content, which is obviously podcasts, promo videos for musicians, websites, everything like that. Marketing, which obviously the websites and that go into, but also building like a social media presence and an audience. And the consultancy is more just advice, really. So like career advice for artists, helping them with some specific problems. Really, to be honest, helping them think about their music as like a brand as well. And like that, I think, is the best way for like musicians moving forward to kind of make it into a career, because they don't make any money through selling music anymore. So it's about like, how do you build a brand around your band almost, and sell merchandise and sell experiences, and so products and experiences, I would say, off the back of that, and that includes gigs.
It's really interesting, like you say about like a band and marketing. It's like a brand, because yes, like if music, and my experience in music and the industry is that releasing a song isn't enough, and just doing gigs, you have to really like market yourself and become like a brand. Like, you know, what are the ways that you would say for musicians to go about branding themselves and becoming like a household name? So like, for example, you say like Slipknot, Taylor Swift, I don't know, Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is like a really good one, because that's like fully a brand. Like,
yeah, let's start with Slipknot actually, because I think that's a really interesting example.
The masks.
Yeah, so first of all, there wasn't anyone doing that. And branding's really about association. Like, what do you associate with this band? And there isn't really anyone else. I mean, some bands have sort of copied the mask thing since, but like...
Yeah, you've got like Ghost as one of them now.
Yeah. But it's like that association. And at the time, that was like a new thing. And people were like, who are these crazy guys going on the stage? And they used to put on a nut show as well. I've read some sort of touring stories and that, and they were crazy. And they would just go mental on the stage, basically. They've got these masks. The music is as heavy as it comes. And it's very unique and distinct and different. And then obviously even like calling the fans maggots and stuff.
Yeah.
That is, it's almost like, I read this in a business book actually recently. They were saying like a startup business is almost like creating a cult where people like have to really like love and be like, give their life to like basically what they're doing. And it's a bit like that sometimes in a band, right? Like the diehard fans are the ones that are going to keep you in a job, basically. They're the ones that are going to keep coming to your shows. And you don't have to be like a Taylor Swift or like a Muse in terms of like building an audience that big. But if you've got a dedicated fan base that are going to support you and come to your shows and buy your merch throughout your career, you can make a living from music, I believe. So that is why it's important. And that's where you can kind of set your expectations realistically. You know, like you can approach it from the angle of building a dedicated little fan base and have a small but stable music career that you can live off and just play music, which is obviously what all musicians want to do. Rather than be like, I want to headline Glastonbury every year, because like it's just kind of an unrealistic goal, to be honest. That is a lot of luck involved in that as well, I would say.
I'd like to headline Download. I'm not going to give up that dream. It will happen. I'm 33. I've got like another 60 years to go.
Yeah, but it's just even like playing some of those festivals and being there and like getting the backstage passes and all that. I mean, I've done that a little bit, not like so much the bigger festivals, but it is a nice experience to have, for sure.
It was interesting you said before about how, like, obviously you always wanted to play in a band and be like a live musician and really enjoying it. And now it's sort of got to I mean, you're still doing that, of course, but you're sort of doing a lot of the business stuff and sort of working behind the scenes. And I find it interesting just because that's kind of similar to what's happened to me. I mean, I'm far less businessy than you are, that's for damn sure. But for example, like this podcast, for example, has come about as a result of just sort of wanting to celebrate music in other ways. And obviously, like, yeah, I'm not in a band at the moment, as you know. I used to be in the band. That's how I met you, actually. It's because of Men in Vests.
See, that's the thing. That's the other thing we've got to mention, man.
Yeah.
You meet people in the music, man. It's a passion. You're connecting with your passion, like we are now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and like I guess like without Men in Vests, I would never have met you, and I would not be on this journey that I'm on now. So it's kind of interesting how it works out.
100%. But it's just finding those other people that have got the same passion, like a shared passion for something, you know, like, and that's really the key. And that's what's great about playing music, to be honest, like getting in a room with other people that love music, you know?
Yeah, you can go in so many different directions as well, like from meeting people in the industry, like in bands, and just, the friends that you make and the different sort of areas that they work in. Like we both know other people that do podcasts and stuff and do sort of a lot more out there things. So, yeah, it's interesting.
For sure. And it's difficult as well, to be honest, for artists now, because like it is a saturated market, and we're talking about Slipknot doing something original and unique. That's getting harder and harder to do because most things have been done. So it's like you've got to try and find your own niche, and you know.
And this might look a bit shit on camera, but I think you might need to talk into the mic a little bit more. I'm just watching our signals, and they're both very different.
That's not an issue though. We can do that. We can sort that in post if we need to. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about that, mate.
Cool. No worries. Sorry to distract you. Where were we? What the fuck were we talking about?
Still just talking about the music business, and you were asking me questions about how artists should, go about branding.
Yeah. I mean, like the masks thing, like as a, I don't want to use the word gimmick, but I guess it is really when you come down to it, like with bands, like definitely not for Slipknot. That's like sort of synonymous with them, like. That's like their thing. I don't know where I was going with this. Lost my train of thought.
But it's just so other bands do stuff like that as well. I'm thinking of, for example, I saw a band called Let Live. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
Super heavy, like really heavy.
Nice.
The guy is just nuts, and I saw him in the Fleece, and he's there just literally like pretty much stripped down to his boxes, running around like a madman, like climbing up the walls and everything, and. You just, when you see stuff like that, you don't forget it, you know? It's like pretty unique. And then I'm thinking of Skin Dread as well. And they do this thing. They've got this song where everyone takes their T-shirts off like this and throws them in the air. Like you might have seen it in download videos and stuff. But it's a unique thing they do every show. They get like everyone to take their T-shirts off and just like go like this, swirl it around in the air.
Yeah, like. I'm not familiar with, I mean, I know who Skin Dread are. Like I'm pretty sure they're on the Tony Hawk's tracks somewhere.
They sound a bit like Korn, I would say.
Yeah. I always get those two mixed up. Like it's the vocals.
Yes, exactly. And the heaviness. They've got like sort of heavy riffs, and it's quite groovy.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like I don't know if rapping is the right word. But I guess it is. Is it like it's kind of like ska? Like rock.
It's its own genre.
It's like madness, but on like steroids.
Yeah.
On crack.
Yeah, but that sort of style, I think.
Yeah, just going back to like the bands and like masks and stuff and like branding. There was a really sick band when I was doing my BA on my course. They're called Fangs of the Dodo.
Wow.
It's an interesting name, but they had like the singer Gemma was like in a full body like paintwork. Like they were basically there. I think the idea for them was like kind of like based off of like comic book characters. They had this like whole comic book vibe going for them. And yeah, each member of the band had like a proper like decked out like setup. It was really cool. Like Gemma, the singer, she had like it's kind of looked a bit like Mystique from the X-Men. Like I'll have to put links up to. They're not together anymore, but you can hear like some of their songs on YouTube and Spotify. I think they're still out there, but I think they continue now as Bitter Kisses. I'm unsure if they've had member changes or not, but yeah, they're a really sick band. I always thought had like a really cool thing going for them. Like I said, the singer had like this whole fucking outfit that looked like Mystique from X-Men. I think the drummer had like a gas mask on, and like it was really interesting, and they're definitely like unique in that sense. I'd say that's like a good example of branding.
And then even beyond like the image, it's like the merchandise as well. Like I've seen bands do unique. I mean, someone mentioned to me the other day about, I think it was Jedward that did their own condoms. I mean, I wasn't going to go around that one, but
say that again. Sorry,
I think Jedward did like condoms or something.
Jedward
like some pop
condoms.
band. Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily think that's the best one to go for. But I'm thinking of this band that came on my podcast that they make their own honey and they sell their honey. Like it's really different. But you can imagine being at a show and they're there selling their honey, like.
Mate, could you imagine meeting a girl and like having to bust out the Jedward condoms? Like, I would not go down well.
No, see, I don't think that's necessarily the best match,
Jedward is not going anywhere near me. Thank you very much.
It's got to say something about your personality as a person as well. I guess one, like to want to make them in the first place.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You care about your head being on a condom that badly.
That's hilarious.
And then using them is a different thing.
Jedward condoms.
But anyway, the point is, you can do different things with your merch, like other than just get a T-shirt and put your name on it.
Yeah. like you.
Absolutely. But I think I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying
yeah.
Just think of something different that your band can do. I mean, I'd love, if I was in a heavy rock band, I'd love to have like my own brewery around the band.
Yeah.
I know a couple of bands have done that.
Well, Iron Maiden have got their own beer
actually.
called the Trooper.
Yeah, I like that.
I actually don't like it. I think it's pretty gross, but I wanted to like it because it's badass. But yeah, I did not like it at all. It's not for me.
But yeah, anything like that, I suppose, is just different, unique. People remember it. Like it's not just like I said, a T-shirt.
It's just good marketing, isn't it? Like the whole like the beer thing, for example, with Iron Maiden.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what's not a good idea for marketing is doing what U2 did and releasing an album for free and it being stuck in your iTunes for forever.
The problem with it is yes, people are going to listen to it more, which they definitely do, but I don't think it's done the best for the band's reputation.
No. I really like U2. I actually think they're quite underrated. Mainly the guitarist, the Edge. He's insane. I don't know if you know much about the guitarist and U2. Are you familiar?
Don't know about him personally. I just never liked him. I've tried, but
It's the guitar parts for U2 that I'm really impressed with. They're really simple. He uses a ton of effects. So just something that's just playing one note, he turns it into this whole epic. It's crazy. I kind of respect him, to be honest. But yeah, when they did that really pissed me off because that was the first thing on that would come up on iTunes. You get in the car and then U2 plays straight away.
That's what happens to me
think
now.
I told you about this before, but there was a guy who got so annoyed with it that he made I think it was like a 4-hour track that was just nothing but silence. And put it on iTunes so that anyway, and he got the most downloads ever for a song that had been put onto iTunes, and it was just 4 hours of silence, and he labeled it so that it would come before every other album, so that when he got into his car, he had time to go through and pick songs, so it wasn't U2, which I just thought was quite funny. It annoyed him that much.
We talk quite a lot, Sean. What else is coming up in this podcast? What can people expect?
Wow, we're going to get guests on. Basically, the idea of, like I said at the beginning, was to just sort of celebrate music in all its various, in all its areas. So we're going to get guests on to talk about music therapy, for example, and sort of how that works. I watched a really interesting documentary called Alive Inside, and that was all to do with music therapy and how music is used to help dementia patients. which I thought was absolutely amazing. So I definitely want to explore like music therapy as like a topic. AI and its use in music. That's another area of discussion that I would love to talk about. Sort of like the state of the music industry and music venues. Like, as you know, we're getting a lot of music venues closing down. Grassroots music venues that have been around for like 40 plus years. Moles, for example, in Bath was victim to like such a thing being closed down. We've had it in Swindon as well with like the Rolleston. Granted, it's for slightly different reasons. That's definitely a topic for discussion. So it's just basically across the board, as many different sort of subjects around the music area as possible. So we talk about instruments one week, like strange instruments. More sort of serious and scientific stuff, like how sound actually works, which is going to require lots of research and planning. But
might be a bit of research, that one.
Yeah. But just sort of, I mean, what sort of things do you have in your mind that you want to discuss? Because you're a bit more businessy orientated, whereas I'm sort of like, I'm definitely more out there with like the interesting subjects that maybe are a bit more niche, like. So
yeah, I'd happily do a couple of business topics. Like obviously we talked about branding a little bit earlier. I mean, marketing as a whole, that's where my expertise is. I'd be happily to do like an episode on that, and maybe also like social media, because it's interesting. A lot of musicians have like a love-hate relationship with social media.
yeah,
Like,
that's me for sure.
some of them just hate it and just don't want anything to do with it. Some of them love it and really get into it and use it in a creative way, but it's just trying to find a middle ground that works for you, I think, because it's hard to avoid. And obviously there is a lot of positives, but there's also a lot of negatives. So it's like, how do you optimize that? But yeah, that would be a good one to go into, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely someone who has like a love-hate relationship with social media and putting my music out there. But I think that's more to do with me being a perfectionist, and as a musician, I hate everything that I create.
The creative process would be a good one. But what you're saying now is something that when I speak to people on my podcast, they always say that as an issue. Like, if I'm talking to a band, there'll always be at least one person that's a perfectionist, and it's a major problem for them. So that's quite an interesting one, because sometimes that is a barrier to you releasing music at the rate that you could otherwise.
Oh yeah, that definitely holds me back. Like, there's something to be said about when you're working on stuff, knowing when to just stop, when to quit and consider something done, which is something I definitely struggle with.
Yeah, one of my lecturers actually at college said, like, literally, your music is never done. You just start working on it.
You just stop working on it. Yeah, this is the exact same thing that we get told as well.
Yeah, it's a good mentality, just to set yourself a deadline and be like, it's done. I mean, the thing is, when you're a professional band and you've got a recording contract, you do have that deadline.
Yeah.
So it's almost harder these days where you can just record at home, and a lot of bands do that now, because then there's a positive in that you've got as much time as you want, but then that's also a negative at the same time.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's really interesting now because, 10, 15 years ago, maybe a bit longer, you couldn't record an album at home, especially for basically free, which I think is a very interesting area.
Recording, we could do an episode actually on like the evolution of like recording.
Yeah. No, definitely.
That would be
that's
a deep
really
one.
interesting because, especially like the last like decade, I've been making music at home. Before that, you'd have to spend thousands like in a studio, and now you can just do it all on a laptop like this one with plugins. And 100%. Some of them are free as well, like Reaper's like a DAW, which you can use for absolutely free. So as long as you've got a microphone, a couple of microphones and guitar and a DI box, you can start creating for basically nothing.
Yeah,
which is really interesting.
Yeah, the barrier to entry is like lower, but then there's also more artists that just put out stuff that isn't good quality, I think.
Like the so it kind of saturates the market a little bit.
Yeah, and it's harder it becomes even harder to break through with good stuff,
Yeah.
Like,
there's an artist that he's completely I can't remember. It's probably not even worth talking about because I don't have the facts. So I can't even remember his name. But ignore that. Let's just scratch that.
But anyway,
I'll cut that bit out.
No, we're not cutting anything, mate. Don't worry about that. But this guy, what I was going to say, everyone that's listening, if you guys have specific topics that you want us to talk about, you know, definitely leave it in the comments.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We want your input.
Yeah,
basically.
we're really open-minded. Well, I'm definitely open-minded. Like, I'm happy to talk about like how sound works underwater for an hour, if that's a thing. And now I'm curious as if that is a thing.
Let's see. Anyone in the comments, let us know if you want us to talk about sound underwater, recording underwater. I don't know.
That's got to be a thing.
It has.
How music works underwater. Because humpback whales sing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They probably have like concerts and everything. Like we don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Like super bassy, but yeah.
Cool.
How long have we been going?
I don't know. I think we're nearly there. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about on this one today?
No, not really. I mean, stick around. This will get better. I've never done anything like this before, so it's been pretty nerve-wracking. You're obviously a bit more comfortable with it. But yeah, stick around. It will get better and more interesting. And yeah, we'll continue to be amusing, I'm sure. But yeah, no, I don't really have much else to say. I think that's a good time to close it down, to be honest, when you run out of things. As soon as we stop recording, I'm like, fuck, should talk about this, should talk about that.
For sure. But it's all good. Yeah, guys, make sure you like follow the pages, subscribe to us, all that kind of thing. You know, we love all the support and we really appreciate it. And like we said, it will be collaborative. We'll have your input on topics and like the direction of it and where we want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good. This is a community-based project in a sense.
100%. But yeah, thanks for listening to us, you know, drabble on and sort of mumble our way through.
Stumble away through it. First episode. But yeah, nice one, guys. Cool. We'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah, see you next time.
Peace
Cheers.
out.